This week's episode was brought to you by listeners like you. Here at The Whole Rabbit, we reject the ongoing harassment from corporate sponsorship, not because we hate money, but because we know the shape-shifting, loose-sucking, fun-hating, blood-drinking reptilian overlords in the fifth dimension are forced to resort to indirect methods of sabotage when we refuse their direct financial sponsorship. So, without the ongoing support of listeners like yourself, our crew, myself included, will invariably be hunted down, put into psychic containment fields, and probed endlessly until we confess our entire plan to sabotage the Black Iron Prison before we're shaved, sterilized, and destroyed. If you'd like to help save us from physical and spiritual ruin beyond which the mortal mind is capable of conceiving, or just hear the second half of this episode, then please visit www.patreon.com/thewholerabbit, where your monthly donation of just $5 will not only get you access to the second, uncensored half of this episode, you'll get the uncensored, extended-length, double plus good edition of every single one of our episodes, which are browsable from right within the Spotify app after you log in. If that wasn't enough, I'll even send you a 5x5 high-quality vinyl sticker of our Big Bunny Baphomet cover art and the secret keys to our Discord server, which is like a Waffle House for sorcerers. If you enjoy The Whole Rabbit but are saving your $5 for a big can of nacho cheese, then please consider giving us a like, subscribe, or share on your social media platform of choice. You gotta help us get the word out. I'm terrible at advertising. In this week's show, we wrap up our second half of RustedThroat's tour of cemetery symbolism that you're bound to encounter at your local graveyard. We begin this episode by focusing on the controversial and culturally rich meaning behind the Edelweiss flower, the rose, its place in pagan and Christian mysteries, before discussing the various things a floral crown might symbolize and why the devil loves guitar. In the extended show, we discuss the ancient Egyptian tambourine, also sacred to girlfriends, the Catholic symbolism used as a bulwark against sin in the afterlife, the secrets of the Obelisk, there's actually quite a bit, and how to identify the graves sponsored by America's most secret and unsecret societies. Thank you, and enjoy the show. You know the best part about living next to a cemetery is?
All the free corpses.
Free food.
All your neighbors are quiet.
Such a boomer thing to say.
You know, it is, actually. And your answers were quite compelling. I'm not sure if you've ruined the joke or improved it. All right, smart guys. How many dead people are in a cemetery?
All of them.
Oh, my God. You came prepared.
You're speaking my language.
What about the groundskeeper?
Yeah,
I'm
he
not
counts.
dead yet.
Hold on. Ed.
All right. Why was Karl Marx buried at Highgate Cemetery?
I don't know.
Because he was dead.
Checks out.
I like that one.
And it's got me thinking, would you say that a cemetery in Moscow is full of communist plots?
Yes.
Oof, oof.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Whole Rabbit, where we don't just tell you about the flowery side of flowers and get stoned on headstones. Nay, we open up the grim encyclopedia's long forgotten, unearth primary sources, and strategically position our mouths under Hera's dripping paps to see what kind of action those daffodils are getting up to, because this week we're exploring the deeper, more authentic side of symbolism you will discover in a graveyard, focusing on the often misunderstood or mysterious motifs your tour guide is sure to mess up. I'm your host, Luke Madrid, also known as Hack Rabbit. I'm joined this week by the jackal of the cremation grounds, Marisama.
Sure is dusty in here.
The unseen mover of the ancient records, Heka Astra.
Hello.
The powerful prince of the post-mortem paratroopers in the sky with demons, Tim, the hot dog shooter hero hacker.
I love that title. I'm totally a hot dog shooter hero.
Don't shoot me.
Too late. I already got you.
No.
It's in your eye.
Ow.
And of course, our special guest and ghostwriter of this episode series. Get it? Ghostwriter? Historian and listener of the show, Mr. RustedThroat. Welcome back to the show, and thank you for joining us.
Good evening.
If it weren't for you helping write the episode this week, I don't think the dentist would have been able to fleece my mother this week. So thank you. And thank you from my mother's dentist.
I don't even know what to say.
Where we left off last week, we were discussing the symbolism of flowers, and we decided to leave off on a particularly compelling one. One, in fact, that has a special place in my heart as both a fan of The Sound of Music and especially Leibach's rendition of it, the Edelweiss, which is like a flower, but it looks more like if you made a flower into a stuffed animal.
Yeah, you guys remember those little animal figurines, I guess from the 80s and 90s that had that like fine felt on them?
Nah.
It looks like a little miniature toy with felt all over it.
Really?
I was actually thinking
Yeah.
of those just the other day.
Yeah, or it's not felt. It's like this cheap velvet feeling.
It's called flocking.
Oh.
Yeah, they almost don't look real. Like if you turned a flower into a beanie baby, I don't know. But these two are a popular symbol on gravestones or in graveyards. But why?
Indeed.
The Edelweiss has a specific meaning that's been upheld for generations. The Edelweiss signifies the departed was courageous. More so than that, they showed resilience in the face of adversity. Now, famously, that also describes the living conditions of the flower. This flower is mentioned in old folklore, the Snow Queen. This folklore predates the Hans Christian Andersen version of the same name and the same characters. In the folklore version, the Ice Queen witnesses something that breaks her heart, and the tears that fall to earth become the Edelweiss. Does that sound familiar to anybody?
No, but it sounds cool as hell.
It's like what we were talking about last week with Harris milk.
Exactly.
To the Swiss, it's an enduring symbol of national pride and emblematic of its lofty peaks of its famed snowy Alps. The popular mythology of the Edelweiss is that due to their inaccessibility, possessing one was a symbol of exceptional courage, aptitude, and endurance. Turns out, this is mostly not true. According to Jessica Davis Plewis,
One of the greatest myths about the flower is its inaccessibility. Tobias Scheidegger,
Shida digger.
a senior researcher of popular culture at the University of Zurich, who researched the Edelweiss for a 2011 exhibit at the Botanical Gardens in Geneva and Zurich, argues that the popular belief that the flower only grows on ice and steep rock is botanically not true. He explains, it was actually the alpinists themselves who popularized this image to promote themselves as brave, strong men. One of the most famous stories about the Edelweiss is of a young man risking his life climbing the steep, rocky face of a mountain to gather Edelweiss flowers as a demonstration of his love and bravery. The 1861 novel Edelweiss, German author Berthold Auerbach exaggerated the difficulty of acquiring the flower, claiming the possession of one is proof of unusual daring.
so you cut out a little bit, but it's essentially like, oh, you want the most desirable woman in your village? Well, you better go climb to the top of the Alps and go pluck her an Edelweiss. I thought it was interesting that this whole thing about their inaccessibility was only debunked here in 2011, and it's like, oh, they just made it up to make themselves sound cool.
Yeah, because like it had been running for so long that people just took it as a fact. Like it's a legend based on a fact.
Now, famously, Mark Twain resisted the hype for the Edelweiss, once describing it as, quote, the ugly Swiss favorite, and remarked that the
Fuzzy blossom is the color of bad cigar ashes. Damn, what a hater.
You won't see me putting this on any tombstones.
I think it's kind of pretty, but you know, I didn't know all of the background stories like the Snow Queen story, or, you know, I didn't know this was such a like part of culture, because where I was first exposed to this symbol was a song by Moondog. I don't know if you guys know who this is, but it's like he's some beatnik like drum guy from the 70s, and he did a song called High on a Rocky Ledge, and the lyrics tell about a rock climber that braves the alpine snow, and the sight of the Edelweiss flower reminds him of his lost love. So you can imagine he climbs mountains often so he could see the flowers. He eventually ends up committing suicide by jumping to his death on a final climb after considering the flower yet again, wishing to join her in the afterlife by growing as another flower beside her off of the lover's ledge. Well, after hearing more about the flower's actual symbolism, maybe he was like a botanist or a daredevil that was in love with the actual risk of obtaining the flower. And the metaphor of courting a lady or having memory of his lost love was just an embellishment of falling to his death in pursuit of this flower, or in other words, in pursuit of this thrill-seeking behavior. So kind of morbid story with those lyrics, but that really kind of pieced it together for me. It's like the song is not necessarily about a lost lover as much as it's about chasing danger until you die.
he's seeking his own soul, man, which is like symbolized by the woman that like he's getting the flower for, but he's like really getting it for like himself.
No, I mean, I think it's literally a metaphor for somebody that likes to take risks. Like they're addicted to taking risks. It's saying here that having the flower or acquiring the flower is to show how big and brave you are and how cool. And, that's what I'm saying is like maybe the guy was actually addicted to that feeling.
I feel a bit cheesy bringing this up, but Rammstein has a similar rendition of this story in their song Rosenwald. It likely refers to the Edelweiss's arguably more beautiful companion, the Alpine Rose. A fiery pink Alpine Rose carries similar connotations of courage due to its accessibility, but it has more of a vibe of love and what you're saying, contemplation, and it appears in national ceremonies, weddings, and funerals, often alongside the Edelweiss. From what I could tell, this is something that relates to the headspace you're in while you're out there in the Alps. Like you're contemplating things, old friends, old lovers, future lovers, whatever, it's a contemplative flower.
You would bring up Rammstein. That's awesome.
I like pretty much all their albums, so yeah. This is definitely a song about this, I'm pretty sure.
I've only listened to 2 Rammstein songs, the one that everyone knows, and Rosenwald.
Turns out the Edelweiss is actually native to the Himalayas, and they found their way to the Alps during the Ice Age. In fact, the Edelweiss is not even a single flower at all, but, quote,
50 to 500 tiny florets clustered in 2 to 12 yellow flower heads, capitula, surrounded by 5 to 15 velvety white leaves, or bracts, arranged in the shape of a star.
So it is a beanie baby.
Yeah, it's weird.
These factual caveats are a bit more humorous when we consider Edelweiss was Hitler's favorite flower. Strangely, it is used in The Sound of Music as a form of protest against Nazi occupation and a symbol of Swiss national pride. So even though it was Hitler's favorite flower, Edelweiss in Sound of Music is an anti-Nazi song. So there you go. Kind of complicated.
In a good way.
In a good way, yeah. If you haven't listened to Liebach's The Sound of Music, do yourself a favor. Just listen to the whole thing, start to finish. This leads us to a flower that is special and sacred to my wife, who is quite good at growing them to ridiculous heights. Turns out they are actually a complicated symbol as well.
Evil alien plants.
Okay.
You take that back.
Oh, scary.
So the audience knows I bring up my quote Satanist friend all the time because he always has, when he said when he was a kid, he was afraid of sunflowers. And I know why. It's because sunflowers, their face is all like the golden ratio. So there's some part of your brain that's like, this is a human face that has the golden ratio, but it's like obviously not a face.
You know what you were saying about the Edelweiss being made up of actually clustering of tiny flowers? Well, the sunflower is the same.
Really?
Yeah, every seed on a sunflower head comes from a tiny flower. So the petals on the outside are actually like fake petals meant to attract.
Oh, like bracts? Is that what a bract is?
I don't know what a bract is. What is a bract?
A modified leaf or scale, typically small, with a flower cluster in its axil. So it's like a secondary leaf.
So like on the head of the flower, the center part that you would think is like similar to a daisy, the center part of it, that's actually a clustering of a lot of tiny flowers.
I looked it up just now. The fear of sunflowers is called helianthrophobia. They believe it's related to trypophobia, which is a fear of pattern of small holes, which I think is a fairly like adjacent to a rational fear, because anytime you see that, something bad has happened, right? You know what I mean? It's like, oh no, the thing is full of holes. I'm going to die. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Maybe a little bit of that, but it's also huge. Like maybe it's like macrophobia too.
I used to also greatly dislike sunflowers, and I made myself make friends with them, and now I love them.
They are pretty neat.
I love sunflowers, but let's be real, they're a little creepy.
No.
they're a little creepy, let's be real. Like corn. Corn is also a little creepy, and that's my favorite thing to eat. So, I mean, and I like sunflowers too.
You can eat every part of the sunflower.
This is important. It's good to know that in case when the apocalypse goes down, you're going to want sunflowers, and we're going to find out why.
So what's it do it in a graveyard?
Okay,
other than
yes.
being sunny and cheerful.
Good question.
Sunflower, like most, have multiple meanings, but it's agreed upon what they mean in terms of the Catholic graveyard, and that's devotion. The young sunflower follows the sun's path in the sky, aka striving for God.
Like how a dog begs for food.
Plant is mature. It stays in a fixed direction, trusting in the sun, dual meaning, fixed in its belief. At this time, it bears mentioning that gravestone symbols are always regional, so you do need to look up the local history. In Cuba, the sunflower represents the Virgin Mary.
That's because she's always looking up at Jesus.
The sun.
Aha!
So you're saying once the sunflower is mature, it stays fixed?
Yes.
Yep.
It stays in that one direction, fixed in its belief, knowing that the sun will continue to pass like it always has, and the sunflower no longer follows the sun's path in the sky.
I believe it's Around the time when it stops being pollinated and starts being like a producing.
That's the symbol.
I find that interesting because I read in some traditions the sunflower represents seeking, like the early part of life where you're looking for answers.
That makes sense then that it stays fixed after it's already been found by bees and other pollinators.
Yeah, I think what you're explaining is the other side, the first part of its life cycle when it's seeking. So you can see the flower both ways. It can have dual meanings, even in its own nature.
Sunflowers are also biologically significant because they're known to remove toxins from the soil. And because of their use in the Fukushima nuclear disaster in Japan, they have come to symbolize hope, renewal, and purity for the Japanese.
They used it in Russia too.
Oh.
A lot of sunflowers were used in Chernobyl cleanup.
So when the nuclear holocaust comes, sunflowers can help purify your soil, and you can eat every part of them. Although I'm not sure you'd want to eat every part of them after they've purified the soil.
They hold on to whatever it is that they're purifying, so you definitely don't want to eat them.
So you want to give them to your neighbors, and then when they die, take their food.
Mm-hmm. Did they taste good with Tapatio?
Everything does.
Big vaginas.
Tim.
I like sunflowers more than roses.
What? Okay, yeah, you're right.
Because of the color, the smell, why?
They're cooler.
Well, you can eat every part of it, and it doesn't have thorns.
Yeah, thorns kind of suck in your mouth.
It does have super spiky hairs on it, though, on the stalk. You gotta give me that.
They're not really spiky. It's just fuzzy. It's more velvety than anything else. Like, it doesn't hurt to touch it.
Does it taste like popcorn?
Sunflowers?
Yeah, like the velvety, buzzy part. Is it like popcorn texturally?
No, the stalk is a bit more like celery.
Oh.
It's like when your wife doesn't shave her legs.
Sort of like fuzzy celery. But you don't really notice it like if you're cooking it or eating it.
Got it.
as
I'd eat it.
much.
I got these sunflowers down here that are, I can't touch them barehanded. They'll stick into my hand. These hairs are aggressive.
I grew Russian giant sunflowers, so they were like 9 feet, 10 feet tall.
And
Nice.
if you have giant Russian wife that does not shave legs, also could penetrate hand when you touch leg.
So Rusty, what you do is, you know how Bruce Lee, he used to like shove his hand into like rocks and sand? You just do that, but with your tongue, and then you can eat them fine.
Shaolin style, one of the 36 chambers.
Yeah, just build up the strength, and then you can eat any sunflower seed. It doesn't matter how fuzzy and hard.
Wink, wink.
And then sunflowers grow from your poop.
What?
What are we even talking about anymore?
The life cycle.
Haven't you seen Holy Mountain?
We become the sacred dog in search of the sacred flower.
We are being silly gooses.
Speaking of sacred flowers, sacred to the Hermetic tradition.
The last flower we'll talk about is the rose. This one has the most different meanings, as it's had so many things attributed to it over the years. Everything you're thinking of, plus so much more. And the rose on a gravestone could mean any of these things. That being said, take this warning. A lot of gravestone symbolism, books, resource material out there is going to get things wrong. That being said, take this warning. A lot of gravestone symbolism resource books is...
Bookses.
I know. Oh, God.
I love bookses.
A lot of gravestone symbolism resource books out there are trash. Also, though, everything everyone writes about the rose is true. I'll say this for certain about the rose. If it doesn't have thorns, it represents the Virgin Mary, and I'll leave it with another poem excerpt.
When I am dead, my dearest, sing no sad songs for me. Plant thou no roses at my head, nor shady cypress tree.
When I am dead, my dearest, Christina Rossetti, 1830-1894.
In the magical tradition of the West, roses are associated with Venus, carrying forth the tradition of the Romans and Greeks, who associated them with Aphrodite. This is encapsulated in the myth of Adonis. When Aphrodite discovered her lover Adonis had been mortally wounded, her tears and his blood mixed on the ground to create the first red roses, solidifying the flower's association with passionate love. In it, painting the roses red. I suppose that's where this comes from as well.
Yep.
As a time-conscious rabbit, I take this personally. So if we bring forward this association between Venus and Adonis, we find the association with death of a loved one is in fact ancient. Michelangelo's Pieta, we could argue, was inspired from older depictions of Aphrodite holding Adonis. This transfers over surprisingly well to Christianity, as Christ is often depicted wearing a crown of thorns, even going as far to substitute Christ for a rose in depictions of the Rosy Cross, a symbol sacred in various schools of magic from Thelema to Rosicrucianism. In fact, that's what Rosicrucianism means, the Order of the Rose Cross, in reference to who else but Jesus. But that's esoteric Jesus who lives inside of us and also outside of us.
The real Jesus.
Also, if you put on every rose has its thorn, white people, if they hear it, actually cannot stop themselves from dancing. There's a documentary about this somewhere.
Hey, gang. You know, all my life I've heard that white people can't dance. I don't believe that. I don't think it's so much that white people can't dance. It's just that they like certain musical instruments. That instrument, my friends, is electric guitar. It speaks directly to the soul of the white person. They find it irresistible. Now with me, as you can see, is my good friend John Mayer.
How are you?
And we're going to test this theory this afternoon.
What the?
You didn't know that, Tim?
No, what the?
There's a documentary about it. Like, if you catch them off guard and you start playing the song, they just start dancing.
Okay, I need to see this documentary.
The association of the rose to the planet Venus goes all the way back to ancient Mesopotamia, where it was sacred to Ishtar and Inanna, where it was then known to be used ritually in the sensual ceremonies of sacred prostitution. In Hindu culture, it's associated with Kama, the god of love. And in Persia, it's associated with the gardens of paradise through its ancient poetry. On this note, the ancient Romans would place wild roses outside of their banquet halls or hang them from the ceiling inside to indicate that anything spoken or shared inside said banquet hall was to be kept confidential, like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. This is where the phrase sub rosa comes from and has since become a phrase implying secrecy. Have you heard this phrase before?
We've talked about it on the show before.
Yeah, sub rosa means keep this hush hush.
Interesting.
Every rose has its thorn.
Stop, I'm dancing.
Yeah, I slightly started headbanging.
I think I need to wash some of this mud off of me.
No.
Flowers aside, but still sticking with vegetation, we're going to talk about a whole 3-part plant symbol that includes a leaf, a wreath, and a tree.
I love this one. This might be my favorite one. One of my favorite symbols.
The acanthus leaf, the laurel wreath, and the cypress tree. You'll very commonly run into these motifs. The wreath is a nice one because it's retained its meaning. It still means victory, the same meaning it had when Nike was placing this crown on a victor's head on battlefields.
I tend to see Nike as an aspect of Sophia, but in the magical tradition, she's also seen as an aspect of Venus or Aphrodite. And this is one reason that Netsock, its name is Victory. Please continue.
Means victory and death. And to understand what victory and death means, we need to look at what that wreath is made out of. Chances are that wreath is going to be made out of laurel leaves.
That's bay leaves. Bay laurel. Like the kind of leaves you stick in a stew.
Really? It's the same thing?
Same plant.
It's delicious.
Wow. I heard that Caesar's crown or Caesar's wreath were actually celery leaves.
What? Blowed my mind, bro. You serious?
Yeah.
Okay, seriously though, look at this depiction here. I have a picture from HBO's Rome where Caesar is doing his like victory procession when they kill the king of the Gauls. If you look at the wreath that's being held over his head by the slave behind him, it looks a little like celery leaves, bro.
So in my professional opinion, those are oak leaves.
I'm listening.
But we do not have enough time to go into the symbolism of an oak tree and oak leaves and acorns.
But oak leaves would have been sacred to like Artemis or Diana to the Romans. Yeah, because Diana had a sacred oak grove.
Isn't it also related to Odin?
I think so. And that would make it in relationship to Jupiter. And so that would be appropriate for, you know, the emperor of Rome.
I think you followed the breadcrumbs to exactly why that wreath is made out of oak leaves in this image. You see, a wreath can be made out of anything, and depending on what it's made out of means all of the attributes of what it's made out of, plus the added attribute of victory. And on top of that, also be a crown. And so a wreath is attributed to everything that a crown indicates. It's the laurel that makes it specific to death. This again comes to us from the Greeks. And it's the story of Daphne. She was a nymph or a mortal woman, depending on who's telling the story, but Apollo loved her very deeply, and she was not going to be taken by him. Instead, she prayed for escape and was turned into a laurel tree for her trouble. From her perspective, dying was a victory so much preferred over becoming obedient property to Apollo, and I think it's very telling that this particular motif of a woman choosing to die over accepting love because of the love of some is subjugation to others, and I think that still resonates today.
I would toast to Daphne, but first I need Ganymede to come fill my glass. Come to me, Ganymede!
So after Daphne was turned into a laurel tree, Apollo developed a love and devotion to the laurel tree, and the laurel tree became Apollo's sacred plant. Some of you may be thinking, well, that sounds like simping, devoting yourself to a woman that clearly rejected you, enough to have gods turn her into a tree. But this is the thing about gods of Greek mythology. They felt emotions stronger than any human could comprehend, and that's why they did these grand, I'll call them situations, because someone's always turning into a bull or a goose to get some. And well, the title of the poem is called The Rape of Europa for a reason, and Zeus was the white bull in that one.
I hate to say it, but she got conquered by Apollo anyways, because it's considered his sacred plant.
Yeah, he like co-opted her side.
I'm curious if any of you know of Apollo being associated with death, because he's in every story and he's a secondary character to all of these death stories.
Well, he's related to the sun, isn't he?
Yes.
So you have the death and rebirth of the sun every day?
Yep.
Yeah, that'll do it.
I thought it was apt to bring up how the ancients thought about these gods. You said that they felt emotions stronger than humans. I thought this made a lot of sense. This is something that Professor Jang talks about in his lecture series, that polytheism is generally a more tenable model for how human behavior actually works. And this is a problem with conspiracy theorists and even modern spirituality to some extent, because on a base level, if you reject polytheism entirely, it forces the individual to see everything as just a battle between good and evil. In reality, people often just become possessed of a certain idea or an emotion or a situationship that impels their actions in ways that we would then recognize from these myths. And so the myths might seem strange, but they're there to explain our own strange and poor behavior. So to ride this idea a little bit, the laurel wreath's association to Apollo made it an enduring symbol for poets who were thought to be possessed of Apollo's muses when writing. This is where the term poet laureate comes from. This follows from the Pythian games also, which were sacred to Apollo. You know, like where the oracles of Delphi, did their readings and stuff like that. Well, they had like their own Olympic games. And this, of course, temple was sacred to Apollo, the winner of which was granted a crown of laurel wreaths. But it wasn't just like athletic games. There were presentations of poetry as well. It had deeply religious symbolism. So like putting the laurel wreath on a poet is ancient, and it does indicate a form of possession or even ego death.
Some of you may notice that the trend, the love of the sun god, or son of a god, being represented. Good catch. I like where your heads are at. The theme will continue. The acanthus leaf isn't one of those symbols, though. The acanthus leaf serves as an art motif, symbolizing that the memory of the departed will live on. That's right. The acanthus leaf represents the full thought of the memory of the departed will live on, not a specific memory tied to a specific person, just the general theme.
Yeah, interesting. For those who are just listening and don't have access to the notes, there's like a little picture here, but they're like the little leaf flourishes, like the curlicue leaves that you see on ancient writings. Like Rusty said, like the tombs and stuff in Rome have etchings of it on there. Sculptures have it. And I never knew what they were called, so now I do. And another fun fact, the acanthus leaves are the single most common plant motif on Hellenistic and Roman sarcophagi and grave stelae from the 3rd century BCE through the 4th century CE. So it explains why I saw it all the freaking time in art history.
Yeah, that was the symbol that carried that meaning and then would tie into the overall motif of whatever painting you were looking at. On memorials, the acanthus leaf represents immortality by way of that art motif, and this plant has some specific properties. One of them is that it's very rugged and will continue to grow after being burned or cut, so its physical attributes attest to its regenerative properties. The acanthus leaf was used by the Greeks as decoration for vases, furniture, and columns.
When it's done ornately in gold, silver, or other precious metal, it becomes a filigree.
Oh.
That beautiful organic plant shape, that's right, that's filigree. And those are acanthus leaves. If you have filigree on your tattoo or a decorative leaf, chances are very high that that's an acanthus leaf. So this leaf was pervasive in their culture as far as art was concerned already. And you'll come to see, as the Greek and Roman architecture comes into the US, we copied a lot of the aesthetics. And the acanthus leaf was used on gravestones, in my opinion, was aesthetic purposes first. The meaning was developed after. Consider this. You've already learned that urns, when in the weeping willow motif, did not contain the ashes of the cremated body. The urn was a vessel for the soul. Now, in real life, those same urns would be decorated, and those urns would be decorated with the acanthus leaf. So that's just one thread of how it could become incorporated into cemetery symbolism and architectural beauty like cemetery walls. I also want to set the record straight that the acanthus was not another nymph pursued by Apollo. That's a story you'll find, but it doesn't have a specific source. You can't find a Greek author of the time that wrote a story of a nymph named Acantha that was pursued by Apollo and was turned into a plant.
This false story has been retold so many times, it would appear, based on the small amount of research I did, that the original meaning seems almost entirely lost. The confusion seems to begin with Callimachus of Cyrene. He lived between 310 and 240 BCE, who, in Anthrologia Palentina 7.518, describes the tomb of a shipwrecked Cretan sailor encircled by sharp thorns. Yet, an acanthus plant grows luxuriantly through them, conquering the thorns. quote unquote. This epigram portrays the acanthus as a resilient life force that overcomes the obstacles of death, directly evoking renewal and survival of fame or essence after burial. Currently, the scholarly consensus views this as the foundational literary articulation of the motif's funerary symbolism, predating and likely influencing later architectural applications. Because Callimachus Cyrene had the same first name as a 5th century architect who used filigree liberally in his designs, the two became conflated. The widespread anecdote attributing the Corinthian capital's invention to the 5th century sculptor Callimachus, who supposedly saw an acanthus growing around a basket on a young Corinthian's grave, is a later Roman embellishment recorded solely by Vitruvius, where it was passed on and passed on and passed on, and prior to this, it had only really been mentioned by Homer as a palatable root that goats were grazing upon. So nobody really knows anything.
It's true. Nobody really knows anything.
I know some stuff.
It's all thanks to everyone naming their kid Callimachus.
Yeah.
This brings us to the cypress tree, a symbol of mourning. These are the tall, skinny trees that can be found carved into gravestones. But even more common, you'll see them planted in the cemetery itself. These trees' branches are fashioned into a wreath for the head of Pluto, the god of death. In this way, his cypress wreath is victory and death, specific to Pluto. Not all wreaths are the same. The history of the cypress tree, representing mourning, comes to us from Ovid in the story of Metamorphosis. This is the story of a boy named Kyparissos, with a K. Swap the K for a C, and you've got Kyparissos. Romanize it a little more, and you get Cypress. Say it with an American accent, and Cypress.
Cypress Hill.
Kyparissos, the story goes, was a beautiful young boy and the lover of Apollo. Being the lover of a god comes with perks, and Apollo gifted the little boy a beautiful white stag, which he adored. One day, Kyparissos was hunting. He threw his spear and missed his target. Instead, he delivered a fatal shot to his beloved white stag that was sleeping in the underbrush. He was overwhelmed by inconsolable grief. He prayed, asked Apollo to be made so he could grieve forever. Apollo answered his prayers and turned him into a tree, what we call the cypress tree, saying, "You shall stand in grief where others grieve." A fun physical fact, the cypress tree leaks sap on its bark like it's crying.
I feel bad for that kid. I feel like Cypress might be unlucky for hunters after hearing this story.
The moral of the story is don't miss.
You know, it's interesting, the album cover I included here from Cypress Hill, it's the album Black Sunday. And it looks, okay, because we talk about it all the time, it's got like a skull, a bunch of gravestones, presumably a cypress tree, what looks to be atop a hill or a ben. So, paging Dr. Great Thumb.
What they do? Insane in the membrane! Insane in the brain!
Doom. Yeah, that's them.
Okay.
Sendog is one of the funniest MCs ever. I don't know anything about that. Thank you very much. This mayonnaise is spicy.
Oh my God. Put some tapatio on it.
No!
Another symbol the Greeks have given us is the lyre. A lyre is a U-shaped instrument with strings.
You're a liar.
You're a liar.
Said to be invented by Mercury.
From a turtle shell, apparently.
A harp is similar, but isn't distinctly U-shaped. Harps were also carved into gravestones, and things get tricky. They don't mean the same thing, and sometimes people carved a harp when they should have carved a lyre.
You thought tattoos were permanent mistakes.
Ha, nerd.
The lyre carved into gravestones is the lyre of Orpheus. Throughout heaven, Hades, and earth, ecstasy suspended all who heard the lyre of Orpheus. This is the thing that charmed Cerberus, so Orpheus could pass. This is the instrument that he brought into the underworld, and then, this way, they can represent the journey from life into death.
Oh, that's cool.
So let's say he was playing a song. You couldn't resist its spell, let's say. You had to.
Right. When you heard the music from this instrument, you were elated.
Well, that's cool because the lyre is actually the predecessor to like all stringed instruments that have like the head or the neck on it. So like guitars, but it's just a messed up harp, you know?
I hadn't considered how close to a harp this thing really is.
It's like morphing into a guitar.
So a guitar is just a harp that drives a work truck.
Kinda, because then you, from lyres, you get like the lap harps, you know, that you like lay in your lap and pluck with your fingers. And then you get guitars, right? And then also you put like the lap harp like laid flat with keys attached to the strings, and then you get keyed instruments. It's like the mother of all stringed instruments and keyboards, I guess.
From there, you either go redneck or shogun.
You know, if you think about it for a second,
It could be argued that this is the classical source for the connection between playing guitar really, really, really good and having the favor of the devil.
Or the devil went down to Georgia, and what is he challenged to play on the fiddle?
Oh, yeah, dude. Because even the devil can't resist.
All
Mhm.
connected. That's right. That's right. No thing can resist.
I get it now.
Is that why
So-
all music you're selling your soul to the devil?
It could come from this. So you see, with all that being said, it does not mean that the person just loved music or the person was a musician. The lyre just also happens to be the instrument of Apollo, even though Mercury is said to have invented it.
Well, he had to give it to Apollo. He had to give it back because he had stolen his cattle.
And also, the lyre is the stereotypical instrument that angels play, in that stereotypical fashion of heaven. Like, I guess you'll see some playing harps, but again, that's a mistake. Lyres.
Oh, is it, Mari?
Yeah.
Well,
That's the
then,
traditional way.
Well, then riddle me this. The harp imagery comes to us from the book of Revelations. John has a vision in the throne room. He sees Jesus represented as a lamb with 7 eyes, and he sees the 4 living creatures, and the 24 elders fall to their knees to worship Jesus in this form. Sick imagery. So the 24 elders each have a harp and golden bowls of incense at their feet and the harps in their hands, and they start singing a new song for Jesus.
Well, you don't hold harps in your hand. You hold lyres in your hand, but harps sit on the floor while you pluck them with both hands. So those were lyres.
Yeah, I was
Such a liar.
I would be interested to see what the Greek word that was used for that, because it might just be a translation.
Agree.
Agree.
It was just maracas.
Da 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 da. The world's ending.
I was going to say earlier that there's a connection with dispelling evil spirits or making them inert that's associated with music since ancient times.
It's funny that it's 24 elders because some harps have 24 strings. I really tried to figure out what the traditional amount of strings was. I'm sure there's a musician out there that could give me a lot of educated answers, but 24 was one of the answers.
So that harp on a tombstone can also mean the person was Irish. Yep, that's just as valid of a thing.
I dug into this a little bit. The Dagda is a powerful father figure god from the...
Tuatha.
Thank you. I don't know why my own ancestral culture is the hardest to pronunciate and understand. Stop! No! So he's associated with fertility, strength, agriculture, wisdom, and magic, typically depicted wielding a magical club that can bring life or death. He is a large, bearded figure. He's both a druid and a warrior who embodies a balance of both power and tenderness. To me, he sounds a bit like an Irish Odin. Dagda's magical harp named Uthni, I have no idea how to pronounce that.
Woony.
Probably like that. It can control seasons, soothe wounds, and change the emotions of listeners. It was made of oak, adorned with jewels and gold, and capable of playing 3 distinct types of music. Gentry, joyful music, Goldtry, sorrowful music, and Suntry, sleep-inducing music, all of which I pronounced wrongly. The harp's powers were used to put seasons in their proper order and prepare warriors for battle, so it is kind of a big deal to the Irish.
In addition to the harp, sometimes you'll see a bowl with smoke coming out next to the harp. Those 2 symbols together represent the prayer of the saints. I'm going to circle back to the lyre for just a moment, because the lyre is also a constellation. You see, Orpheus failed that one last condition and looked back, losing the love of his life forever. Again, he played his lyre until his dying day. Upon his death, Zeus ascended it into the sky, and that's how we got the constellation Lyra, recognized by Ptolemy in 2nd century AD in his official list of 48 constellations. But to the Babylonians, this constellation was a goat, and Vega, the 5th brightest star in the night, was the eye of that goat.
Cool. So more ancient overlap between the guitar and the devil.
In some Arabic cultures, Vega isn't even an eye, but it's part of an eagle's breast. The An-Nasir al-Waqi is a falling, swooping eagle. To the Burong people of southwest Australia, the same area of the sky, including the Lyre, is also known as the Millefal constellation. So these are all more examples of why locality of the cemetery matters when talking about the symbols.
So this technically means that the greatest rock band of all times was the Eagles. Like, just using esoteric symbolism. I think we've made a great discovery here, people.
I like where your head's at.
Now, you think I was joking about maracas, but if you'd like to hear about how I actually wasn't, joking about maracas, then you're gonna have to visit www.patreon.com/thewholerabbit, where your monthly donation of just $5 will not only get you unlimited access to this extended episode, you'll get unlimited access to our entire voluminous library of extended episodes, which stretch back before the 20s. What the hell? I'll even send you a 5x5 high-quality vinyl sticker for our Big Bunny Baphomet cover art at no additional cost, all of which I have actually dropped in the mail recently. So if you subscribe right now, there's a half-decent chance it will not arrive to you late. I'm sorry for all the people it did. And you'll get the secret keys to our Discord server, which is delivered digitally. And you can harass me online to give it to you if it doesn't arrive automatically, which it does through Patreon. That, when you sign into, you'll be able to browse your members-only extended-length episodes right from within Spotify, which is way more convenient than having a separate app. But if you do have a separate app, you can join us for live streams and hang out with us.
Also, you can see us compare all of our dope as socks in our dope as socks club.
That has been a thing in the Discord lately. People are sharing pictures of their socks.
Yeah, you got a ball with us, bro. Look at your face.
I don't understand socks.
Heka's down. She's got the sandal socks.
I actually don't do that. I just posted a GIF of it because I want everyone to get along.
Oh no, because we have a rivalry now. We have the dope as sandals without socks versus the dope as socks.
Shirts versus skins, but different.
Yeah, so if you see that gang warfare going on in the Discord, just ignore it. Unless you want to join in. Join my side, though.
Thank you, everybody. Eat carrots and shoot lasers.
Pew, pew, pew.